それでは1時となりましたので、これより午後のセッションを始めてまいります。1時からは、オマー・ガレアーノ様、並びに、ニック・ドロチャク様による、エクストリームチームオーナーシップの講演を始めさせていただきます。なお、この部屋での、講演は英語で進行しますので、もし日本語で、実際の会場に来ている方で、日本語で聞きたいという方は、Zoom に入っていただいて、通訳設定をしていただけますと、日本語で聞くことができます。それでは、よろしくお願いします。
All right, then, let's begin. Extreme ownership. What comes to mind when you hear those words? Maybe an expensive house or car that you bought? In this session, we'll talk about a different kind of ownership. It's a mindset inspired by US Navy SEALs that can help software teams to accomplish their goals. My name is Omar Galeano. I'm a quality engineer at Slalom, where I've been for 8 years. I'm an electrical engineer who became a software engineer. And I've consulted with US clients for the past 16 years, focusing primarily on Japanese clients for the past 3 years.
Hello, everybody. My name is Nick Drochak. I've been with Slalom about 8 years, been doing software development pretty much all my life. And right now I'm helping teams build software, learn how to build software, and recently came to Japan to help Slalom open the office here. Just really quickly, a little bit about Slalom. I know we're not supposed to have a commercial, but just we're a consulting company. We do both business and technology consulting, but focus on helping companies transform in some way. We call that DX. That's the term, right? We use mostly for that. Work with a lot of Fortune 500 logos you probably recognize. So anyway, we're here in Japan now and going to try to work with companies here to do a lot of what we were doing in North America.
All right, back to extreme ownership. So extreme ownership is the title of the New York Times #1 best-selling book written by 2 retired US Navy SEALs. The Navy SEALs are known as an elite military team and for having a very rigorous training program. The authors have taken leadership principles learned on the battlefield and now work with business executives to solve business leadership problems. So what does ownership mean in this context? In this case, it means the responsibility that someone chooses to take in order to achieve team success. And this quote by the author captures the essence of extreme ownership. It says, "Leaders must own everything in their world. There was no one else to blame." Now, does the idea of owning everything in your world sound a little too extreme? Well, don't worry. We'll talk about what this can tactically look like to help software teams achieve their mission. So we'll start by talking about the team and its mission, and then we'll get into extreme ownership and what it looks like in terms of owning tasks, decisions, and mistakes. And then we'll leave some time at the end for Q&A. So starting with the team and its mission. And we'll start with a quote. The author says, "Leadership isn't one person leading a team. It's a group of leaders working together." Now, the book describes leadership in terms of a traditional hierarchical organization where you have senior leaders who lead a group of junior leaders who lead a group of soldiers to achieve the team's mission. Now, in contrast, agile software teams tend to be a little different than the military. Software teams are more cross-functional and self-organizing. So you may have people on the team who don't necessarily report to someone else on the team. Now, though agile software development is very different from the military, the principles of leadership and teams still apply. And that's what we're here to talk about. As John Maxwell once wrote, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So regardless of someone's title or role on the company, everyone on the team is a leader because everyone has the ability to influence each other and the mission. Now, some leaders are more senior and others are more junior. And it's usually the responsibility of the senior leader to ensure that everyone on the team knows their role and understands the mission. And a team's mission may be in the form of a project charter or a shared purpose or even sprint goals. They can be high level, such as we want our clients to have a great experience using our new mobile application. Or they can be granular, such as in Sprint 5, we want to create a highly performant product listing catalog for our e-commerce site. Whatever the team's mission, the key is that everyone on the team understands it and owns it. So to summarize, everyone on the software team is a leader, regardless of their title or role in the company. It's the senior leader's job to help everyone on the team understand their role. And everyone on the team needs to understand the mission and own it. So now let's talk a little about owning tasks. And about tasks, our author says, the focus must always be on how to best accomplish the mission. Now, on some teams that we've worked with, we've seen, and especially in some teams in Japan, team members who own kind of all aspects of the project. So the same person who does coding might also be designing the user experience and doing testing and managing the CI/CD pipeline. Now, this can lead to a team of generalists who know a little bit about all aspects of development. But when something goes wrong, that can also lead to, that can also lead to no one being blamed because no one really sticks out. That's great. But there can also be a lack of deep expertise in each area. And also, no one necessarily knows what the team's mission is or who owns it. So unfortunately, sometimes the same mistakes can keep happening because without ownership, the team may not be learning from mistakes. On other teams we've worked with, especially in the United States, we've seen that we have specialists that own each area. So for example, a visual designer owns the user experience. Developers own the features, and quality engineers own quality, and DevOps engineers own operations. While this can bring a deep expertise into each area, if something goes wrong, there can be a mindset that that's somebody else's problem. So if there's a problem with the experience, well, that's the visual designer's issue. If there's a problem with coding, that's the developer's issue. If there's a problem with quality, that's the quality engineer's issue. And if there's a problem with operations, the pipeline, that's the DevOps engineer's issue. But even if everyone executes their area perfectly, there can still be issues in transitions and handoffs from one area to another. And when that happens, there can be finger pointing and blaming, which ultimately hurts the team. Oops. So ETO merges the best of both worlds, merging the deep expertise of the specialists with the broad concern in all areas of all things that impact the mission. Now, I'm a quality engineer, and so I'm going to share an example from my world. My job is to define and execute the quality strategy with the team. And my day-to-day job can look like testing, finding defects, writing automated tests. But at the same time, I'm also helping out our designers by reviewing the visual designs to ensure that what was designed can actually be built and tested. And I'm helping our developers by reviewing the story acceptance criteria to ensure that it's complete and testable. And I might be helping with code reviews and unit testing. And I'm helping our DevOps engineers by adding automated tests to the pipeline. But software is complex, and it can be very difficult to find every bug every time. Even if I have a team of quality engineers working with me, we often don't have the domain expertise to be able to find every kind of bug. And that can be really scary. Fortunately, all of my teammates are helping me because everyone is committed to finding defects. And we have developers who are also doing automated testing. And we have DevOps engineers adding automated tests to the pipeline. So I don't have to worry about missing a particular bug because I know that my team is committed to the mission. And part of our mission is to deliver quality software. So to summarize, tasks may be shared by the whole team, but that doesn't mean that everyone necessarily owns the mission. Specialists may focus on their own domain, but not necessarily on others and the mission's success. Extreme team ownership combines both team members specializing in their areas of expertise and the whole team having a mindset of looking out for the success of others and the mission.
Thank you, Omar. Yeah, so this is all about a mindset. And I want to talk a little bit here about what it means to own decisions in an extreme mindset. Start with a quote from the book. That complete faith in what others will do, how they will react, and what decisions they will make is the key ingredient. You know, I heard this talk by Simon Sinek, another leadership speaker and author. He studied and worked with the Navy SEALs also, and he tells a story about what he learned about people jumping out of an airplane. You don't jump out of that airplane because you are brave. You jump because your teammates are going to jump right behind you. You're all going to go down. You're going to land on the ground, and you're going to protect each other and support each other. So you don't jump because you're brave. You jump because you have a team that's going to support you. That allows you to be brave. With that being said, I want to talk a little bit about one way some people think about decision making. I read this article in the Harvard Business Review. It was written sometime in the 1970s by Peter Drucker, but I think it's still quite insightful. It really made me understand a little bit better about how things are done here in Japan compared to what I'm used to in the States. He explains that the way decisions are made is, of course, some small group or one person gathers some information, considers some solutions, and then we, us from the West might say, then there's a build consensus phase, right? Name Awashi, right? Go around, talk to everybody, make sure everybody agrees. That's how we see it. Peter Drucker says that's not actually what's happening. Actually, something way more valuable is happening. It's not just about getting everybody to agree and so no one stands out or argues during the meeting. It's to make sure that you are asking the right question in the first place. Is the question even important to answer? Are you doing something that actually means something valuable? Asking that question is very important. That's something we often do in consulting. We will work with a company and we will ask them, why? Why? Right? And that's what this part of the phase here in Japan is often. And this is great for big decisions that affect a lot of people. Hard to walk back from. For example, should we do a joint venture with this company from Germany and do a joint manufacturing project, spend billions of dollars? Yeah, that's a good system, right? But we're talking about, for us, we're talking about small teams building software, usually business-related software, right? Where a lot of small decisions have to be made, and to be agile, you have to make them quickly, right? So you don't really have time to go through the process above, and it's probably not necessarily necessary. Here in extreme team ownership, we trust people to make their own decisions as an individual. Just consider, use your professional judgment, and make a decision. We're in a 2-week sprint. How bad can we make it? Right? Every 2 weeks, you have a chance to redecide the decision. It's not a big deal, right? So this is the mindset of being brave. I can jump out of the plane. I can make a decision. I know my teammates are going to support me, right? And we're going to work as a team. In the end, what you get in the top one is, a carefully executed plan after all the consideration is done, of course. And the extreme ownership version, right? You're going to learn by doing. So yes, you're going to make a decision, and we'll get to this. Not all of them will be right, but you're going to learn something, and that's fine. You can readjust after a couple of weeks. What happens if you make a mistake? You find a problem? That's okay. Just go back and start again. There are two different models. There are many ways to understand decision-making, group dynamics. This is just one particular one I found I wanted to talk about. So Omar gave his example. I want to give mine about jumping out of the airplane. What's that look like? For example, on a project here in Japan, the mission for this client was to build a modern system, replace an old system they have. They want to go to the cloud. And they really, everybody said, I really want to not work late at night. Sound familiar? So I'm going to make decisions I'm the architect on this project, so I need to make some architectural decisions. But I'm going to consider the mission, which is, again, it has to be modern and no late nights, right? So one of the decisions I'm going to make is programming language. Where are we going to write this thing in? Well, the experienced designers on the team were familiar with JavaScript, but the developers wanted to do something a little, not quite JavaScript, that was a little too loosey-goosey. So we decided on TypeScript. So I made the decision to use TypeScript for everything. We were going to use React, so it fit. No late nights. Of course, modern. So microservices, right? Of course, modern answer is always microservices. And when it's microservices, it's usually Docker, some kind of container, right? And if you're going to do Docker, you're going to do Kubernetes, right? Well, they didn't like that because you still have things to maintain and you're still going to be up late doing kubectl all night long, right? Because something's not right. So we decided to go serverless. We hadn't decided the platform yet, whether it was going to be AWS or Azure, but we knew we wanted to do something serverless. Sorry. What's the problem though? The problem is that this is all new for the team. Scary new stuff that we will probably get wrong a lot as we learn it. So Omar said, don't worry. He's the quality engineer. He promised me, he was my support. He's going to jump out of the airplane with me. He promised me he would have an automated test system that would exercise this system all the time and quickly, completely cover the tests and run fast so that we could do check-ins and have the tests run really quickly and get immediate feedback. He promised me, right? That let me be brave about this decision, right? Otherwise, I might just put it on a VM, right? I might just do a web API, put it on a VM, go safe, right? But VMs, that means late nights, right? Patching, all that. Try to get away from all that. So these are the decisions we made, and I felt confident to do so because I had a team that was looking out for me. So in summary, you can be brave and make decisions in your domain because your team supports you. With extreme team ownership, consensus will come from trial and error and evidence. And you can get input from others and consider their ideas, but then use your own professional knowledge and experience to make your own decision. Listen and then decide. Now I want to talk about making mistakes. We all make mistakes. Mistakes are going to happen. I love this picture because this is what it's supposed to feel like when you make decisions early and you try something new and now you have what your real idea really comes to fruition. So this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like. Start with a quote. Not every decision will be a good one. For any leader, handling those mistakes with humility is the key. So you may be thinking, so this comes from the book, and you may be thinking, okay, extreme ownership, it's from the book. It applies to teams here in this talk. What are you talking about? What is extreme ownership? Well, there's a very simple formula that explains pretty much the whole book. I recommend you read the book, but here's the formula. I'm going to give you a preview. Extreme ownership is 100% responsibility and 0% blame. 100% responsibility. That's what you need to take. It's a mindset. Now, we're all human beings. We're on a team. Most of us are on a team with other human beings. We have good days. We have bad days. But if you have this mindset where you're going to try to take 100% responsibility, no matter what, you were late to the meeting because the train was late. So when you get to the meeting, what do you bring with you? You bring that little slip of paper, right? That blames the train, right? But you could have left earlier. Trains are late sometimes. Everybody knows that, right? You could take responsibility. You could have left earlier to make sure in case the train was late, you wouldn't be late. That's an option you could make, right? That kind of thinking is 100% responsibility, 0% blame. So it's a mindset is what you're trying for in extreme ownership. Now, I want to tell a story that's, this is a true story, experience of mine. 6 years ago, I worked with a client in Seattle, where I'm from. They were changing their loyalty program. Used to be you would get points, loyalty points by visiting the store. Every time you visit, you get basically 1 point. They were changing it to you spend more money, you get more points. So it's not visit based, it's spend based. So they had to change. But one thing that was not changing was the fact that your points expire after 6 months if you don't use them. So you get the points in January and then they expire 6 months later. So now if you're a developer in the room, you're already cringing, right? Because dates. 6 months later means what? That's not very precise. 6 months later, right? There were some precise rules You actually got to the stars, actually your points expired on the first day of the month in the last time zone in the globe that has the first of the month. So even if you're in New York City, you can wait technically your second because it still was right, or Japan. So great. Problem is testing this. That's one problem. Testing this is not easy because how do you test this? So do we hard code first of the month into the code? Now, yeah, you could do that, but that means that testing, Omar has to write a test and he has to wait until the first of the month to see if it works. Can't do that. So what did we do? Well, we made the day that expires configurable. So it's the 15th of the month or whatever it is today. Omar wants to test, sets the configuration value to the 15th, sees if the stars expire. So we launched in April. It's actually almost 6 years ago to the day. Yeah, in April we launched. We had a week of very hard days getting it out and working correctly. It was fine. It was the middle of April, and then we got it working. It was fine. We stopped doing very late nights, and I was starting to sleep and wake up at a normal time and go to work at a normal time. And then Monday morning, I got a call from Starbucks. It said, "Hey, system's down." We were trying to figure out what happened. Eventually we figured out, oh my gosh, it's the first of the month. It's May 1st. Stars are expiring. Servers are going up to 100% CPU, crashing, coming down, starting up again, get up to 100 CPU, crash. It was just like this. We finally figured out there was a bug. Of course, there was a bug. There's a bug in the code. Simple. It was a bug. It was a bug, of course. So fortunately, the team was extreme ownership team, mostly. Most people were taking largely 100% responsibility. So we had a retro afterwards. We got it fixed. Nobody's points ever were affected. But in the retro, everybody, we got in the room, very high level people from the client were there. CTO was there, very high level people. And we had to explain what happened. I actually honestly don't remember whether I wrote that line of code or a line of code in that bug or not, but it was definitely on my team. So I expected to go there and take the blame, right? But before I could talk, QE spoke up and said, okay, that was our fault. Software is hard, right? And this was a tricky bit of code. We should have had better tests for this. The reason we never saw the bug appear was because of load. Basically, it took the real production load to make this bug show up. Could have had better load testing. That's what QE said. I was about to speak up, but before I could, DevOps spoke up and said, no, we should have saw this, right? We could have had better monitoring on this. We should have seen this coming. They took responsibility. The designer also spoke up first and said, well, actually, it's kind of my fault because I just told the team it's the same as before. Stars expire on the first of the month. They always did. They still will. It's the same, looks the same in the app. Turns out it's not the same. It was slightly different, which led to part of the problem. Then finally, I could speak up and say, no, it was a bug. We wrote a bug. Right? This was it should have been obvious that this was a very critical piece of the code that doesn't get executed very often. That alarm bells should be ringing in, if you've been doing this for, longer than a year or two, that, okay, that's, we need to pay extra special attention to that area. So we also spoke up and said, no, we did, yes, but we wrote a bug. It's true. So it can be scary. It can be scary to admit and take responsibility. You think you might get fired. You might get fired. Usually you don't. What happens though is that it builds trust. The team trusts you more. The customer trusts you. If you take responsibility, and then you will go on to make sure that this doesn't happen again, that everybody, the trust will build, and you'll have a better team and a better relationship with your stakeholders. So just to summarize here, information is incomplete and constantly changing. Not every decision will turn out to be correct. That's just reality. Extreme ownership is 100% responsibility and 0% blame. And when you do make a mistake, and they will happen, there's no place for blame, only to accept responsibility and make improvements. So just some final thoughts. Everyone on the team is a leader who believes in the mission. You need to own your own domain. You need to own it. But focus on the mission. Make the best decisions you can with what you know. And when the mission fails, take responsibility and make sure it never happens again. Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Thank you, guys. That was a great overview of the topic. I wonder, do you have any specific kind of examples of how to address bugs and extreme ownership, in so much as that bugs are not necessarily any one person's problem? It could be requirements. It could be that for a software team, how do you reconcile Kaizen, bug finding, and extreme ownership at the same time?
Well, we'll have the quality guy talk about bugs. Yeah, I think in terms of, it's interesting that you mentioned Kaizen, because I think we kind of see the spirit of Kaizen in extreme ownership, right? In terms of, especially if a mistake was made, whether it's a bug or any kind of decision that didn't go well, there's always that retrospective afterwards of, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is the plan so that it doesn't happen again. And, we do that at the end of sprint, whether it's a good sprint or a bad sprint. And we do that with regards to bugs, right? In terms of, okay, we found this bug. What can we do to make sure that doesn't happen again? So I kind of see it in the same spirit, really.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense.
Discord, that any text questions?
So I've been in a few client-facing meetings where things have gone wrong, and that concept of everyone putting their hand up and taking responsibility does definitely sound nice. To what degree did that actually placate the very, I assume, unhappy customer at the time? And do you feel like it has an overall positive impact, or is it more an internal team thing that helps you grow as an organization and whatnot? Or, I'm just trying to envision what was the net result in that. It doesn't have to be that specific one, because obviously this is a real client environment that you're talking about. But yeah, just what are the effects of taking such an approach in a real life client-facing scenario?
Yeah. So in to be truthful, it was a difficult couple of weeks during that time, for sure. Emotions were high. A lot of money was not being made. So it did impact them. And so, however, I think it's, well, you kind of have a choice, right? You can point your finger and blame. You can have a culture of blame and try to stand behind the person who's going to take the hit and hope it doesn't hit you. So you can take that approach. So, or you can step up and take responsibility. So yeah, internally for sure, especially within our team, we see that when we work together as a team and we do it this way, the teams are much stronger and they perform way better for the client. So I would say if I were leading the team and we took that approach and we took responsibility and the client decided to let us go because we admitted that it was our mistake, I'm good with that. The client, this is also a true fact. They didn't fire us. And in fact, we finished out that round of work and they kept asking us back more and more. So we did build a lot of trust. That one of the senior folks on the client side went to another company and then called up and said, "Hey, Nick, do you have another team for us?" So I can't say that it was just that, but it didn't hurt. That's for sure.
I mean, injecting that kind of positivity within a team and the, moving away from blameful culture, I think it has a lot of overlap with things in Agile as well. And so, yeah, holistically, it's a very good idea. Thanks.
Any other questions?
あ、日本語でも大丈夫ですかね。はい。はい、ありがとうございます。非常に面白い会話で、内容でした。はい。そうですね。チームの中に、とても受動的な人がいる場合とか、あと、ジュニアクラス、あまりスキルの高くない人っていうのがいる。で、そういう人たちをオーナーシップを持っていくメンタリティにしていくには、どういうなんか工夫というか、なんか tips みたいなものがあったら教えていただきたいなと思いました。お願いします。
That's a great question. Well, first, you do it yourself. So if you model the behavior, if you do it yourself and you're showing that you take responsibility, and make that a standard behavior, then junior people will hopefully see you do that and repeat how you do it. Coaching junior people, of course, is good. What I tend to do is I tend to try to take at least half of the blame if somebody junior on my team makes a mistake, because that means I didn't prepare them well. I didn't explain it well. So I take responsibility for their mistake. So if you do that and you take responsibility for their mistake, that will help encourage them to admit when they make mistakes. So that's what I've seen.
Yeah, and I think what Nick is describing is actually a concept that's described in the book, which is this idea of creating a culture of ownership. So, for example, by modeling behaviors, by repeatedly demonstrating them. Let's say one day Nick is gone. Nick has to leave the team for some reason. The culture is now in place so that if another leader comes in, they can still have that ownership. We're not dependent upon Nick in order to take ownership. And I think that plays a role in that as well.
ありがとうございます。
If there's not any other questions, then 以上です。ありがとうございます。